The natural cure for an ill administration, in a popular or representative constitution, is a change of men. A sacred respect for the constitutional law is the vital principle, the sustaining energy of a free government. If it were to be asked, what is the most sacred duty and the greatest source of our security in a republic? The answer would be, an inviolable respect for the Constitution and laws, the first growing out of the last. A sacred respect for the constitutional law is the vital principle, the sustaining energy of a free government. Constitutions should consist only of general provisions. The reason is that they must necessarily be permanent, and that they cannot calculate for the possible change of things. For my part, I sincerely esteem the Constitution, a system which without the finger of God, never could have been suggested and agreed upon by such a diversity of interests. The present Constitution is the standard to which we are to cling. Under its banners, bona fide must we combat our political foes, rejecting all changes but through the channel itself provides for amendments. The powers contained in a constitution ought to be construed liberally in advancement of the public good. While the Constitution continues to be read, and its principles known, the states must, by every rational man, be considered as essential component parts of the Union, and therefore the idea of sacrificing the former to the latter is totally inadmissible. We are attempting, by this Constitution, to abolish factions, and to unite all parties for the general welfare. Civil liberty is only natural liberty, modified and secured by the sanctions of civil society. It is not a thing, in its own nature, precarious and dependent on human will and caprice, but it is conformable to the constitution of man, as well as necessary to the well-being of society. In this distribution of powers the wisdom of our Constitution is manifested. It is the province and duty of the executive to preserve to the nation the blessings of peace. The legislature alone can interrupt those blessings, by placing the nation in a state of war. There is no position which depends on clearer principles than that every act of a delegated authority, contrary to the commission under which it is exercised, is void. No legislative act, therefore, contrary to the Constitution, can be valid. If the Constitution is adopted, and it was, the Union will be in fact and in theory an association of states or a confederacy. A treaty cannot be made which alters the constitution of the country, or which infringes and express exceptions to the power of the Constitution. It does not matter how slowly you go as long as you do not stop. Keep your face to the sunshine and you cannot see a shadow. No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river and he's not the same man. There is a certain enthusiasm in liberty, that makes human nature rise above itself, in acts of bravery and heroism. The nation which can prefer disgrace to danger is prepared for a master and deserves one. When the sword is once drawn, the passions of men observe no bounds of moderation. The nation which can prefer disgrace to danger is prepared for a master and deserves one. I think the first duty of society is justice. Men are rather reasoning than reasonable animals, for the most part governed by the impulse of passion. Power over a man's subsistence is power over his will. Men often oppose a thing merely because they have had no agency in planning it, or because it may have been planned by those whom they dislike. It's not tyranny we desire, it's a just, limited, federal government. Real firmness is good for anything, strut is good for nothing. I never expect to see a perfect work from an imperfect man. The voice of the people has been said to be the voice of God, and, however generally this maxim has been quoted and believed, it is not true to fact. The people are turbulent and changing, they seldom judge or determine right. The sacred rights of mankind are not to be rummaged for among old parchments or musty records. They are written, as with a sunbeam, in the whole volume of human nature, by the hand of the divinity itself, and can never be erased or obscured by mortal power. Why has government been instituted at all? Because the passions of men will not conform to the dictates of reason and justice, without constraint. It is the advertiser who provides the paper for the subscriber. It is not to be disputed that the publisher of a newspaper in this country, without a very exhaustive advertising support, would receive less reward for his labor than the humblest mechanic. You should not have taken advantage of my sensibility to steal into my affections without my consent. The honor of a nation is its life. Real liberty is neither found in despotism or the extremes of democracy, but in moderate governments. The sacred rights of mankind are not to be rummaged for among old parchments or musty records. They are written, as with a sunbeam, in the whole volume of human nature, by the hand of the divinity itself, and can never be erased. Let us recollect that peace or war will not always be left to our option, that however moderate or unambitious we may be, we cannot count upon the moderation, or hope to extinguish the ambition of others. Unless your government is respectable, foreigners will invade your rights, and to maintain tranquility, it must be respectable. Even to observe neutrality, you must have a strong government. Constitutions should consist only of general provisions. The reason is that they must necessarily be permanent, and that they cannot calculate for the possible change of things. Why has government been instituted at all? Because the passions of man will not conform to the dictates of reason and justice without constraint. Even to observe neutrality you must have a strong government. Nobody expects to trust his body overmuch after the age of 50. In framing a government which is to be administered by men over men, the great difficulty lies in this: you must first enable the government to control the governed, and in the next place, oblige it to control itself. The inquiry constantly is what will please, not what will benefit the people. In such a government there can be nothing but temporary expedient, fickleness, and folly. Safety from external danger is the most powerful director of national conduct. Even the ardent love of liberty will, after a time, give way to its dictates. In the usual progress of things, the necessities of a nation in every stage of its existence will be found at least equal to its resources. To all general purposes we have uniformly been one people, each individual citizen everywhere enjoying the same national rights, privileges, and protection. A well-adjusted person is one who makes the same mistake twice without getting nervous. In politics, as in religion, it is equally absurd to aim at making proselytes by fire and sword. Heresies in either can rarely be cured by persecution. There are seasons in every country when noise and impudence pass current for worth, and in popular commotions especially, the clamors of interested and factious men are often mistaken for patriotism.